Hello, welcome to the War Gamer. I'm your host, Rob. Hola, chicas and chicaritas. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Rob, and it's a pleasure to be here. Pete the Wargamer, thanks very much for subscribing. The subject of today's show is I'm going to be taking some AOS FAQ questions and trying to answer them, which is the whole of today's topic. And that's my intro. Oh, I've started off real low energy today. I'm going to move forward. Hello to the Twitch chat. Hello to everyone who's listening to the podcast as well. I hope you're well, and I hope everything is going really well for you. And if it isn't, don't forget to always reach out to someone. Thanks to everyone on this Wargamer Patreon, and of course, to everyone on the podcast. Now, let's talk about the podcast, ladies and gentlemen, because I discovered yesterday, thank you very much to Joe for showing me that professional water drinking is a thing. Did anyone else see that? Has anyone else seen that? Like, so professional water drinkers, effectively, who they just they do a video every day of them drinking a water. So I thought I'd start the show off today in honor of them, to all the podcast homies and everyone listening, to stay hydrated. And I'm going to also do a sip of water every day. Probably really bad for a podcast. But, you know, if they could do it, hundreds of thousands of subscribers if you're a professional water drinker. You just... Thanks. I drank that like a pro. One-handed as well. That's one of my tricks, is a one-handed water drink. A woman died in Australia trying to do that to win a car. What the fuck? Hey, Ziggy. Bad water. Yeah, no, I haven't actually got my Honest Wargame water bottle yet. It's on the way, apparently. So I'm just waiting for it to arrive. But yeah, like hundreds of thousands of subscribers. A fascinating little deep dive into YouTube yesterday. Was me discovering that. It was a Vice video. So thanks very much to Joe for sending it me. You can watch a guy drink a bottle of water every day in random locations, if that's your bag. It's but don't drink too much. But drink enough water is what I'm gonna say. Anyway, everyone, welcome to the show. Yesterday on Twitter, I announced... Has anyone got any questions? I hope everyone's well. Yesterday on Twitter, I asked a question. And that question was, let's say there is an event this weekend, which there is. There's the Hammer Time event, so that's kind of what I'm talking about. What fringe cases and rules would you ask a tournament organizer to rule on before an event, as there isn't an official clarity? So, there is a whole bunch of rules that I know of knocking around the park that don't have any like official rulings. Ultimately, like there are some new Codex ones, some new Battletome ones. So this is just Age of Sigmar, not 40k. And I think there's a load. There are a load of fringe cases which might come up in a tournament. So one of the things I was going to do is, for my tournaments in the future, was kind of future-proof this a little bit and start to like tackle some of these questions and have conversations with you guys about them, about what's going on generally around the world. Because one of the problematic things is different TOs around the world always have to make this decision on their own. And I know I feel a little bit daunted sometimes about like having to make some of these decisions or some of these FAQ clarifications, like for the Super Series, the band stuff and all that. That was all on my shoulders. So there was a lot there. And I think one of the really important things about that is that you listen to feedback, which I think I did quite well, and then you try to process that information. So that's what I was basically going to do today. I'll start that, and then I was going to produce a document and leave it up on the Honest Wargamer. So if other TOs wanted to use it and they were like, you know what, I didn't decide this, some dickhead in England did it, and then it's just easy, right? Real easy. And this is where there aren't clarity. So this isn't changing rules, this is where there isn't clarity on a situation. Yeah? Right? Someone has to do it. Someone has to put up a document. Otherwise, every TO is making a different decision. So you go to one TO, needs to sign something else, another TO, and that can still happen. But I'm just going to do this now. It just seems really easy. And then if a whole bunch of TOs and me want to get together and then just be like, cool, this is what we use, well, it seems pretty simple, I guess. I don't really have any dog in the race, like, ultimately. Like, I could ask you all the Chaos Dwarf fringe case questions, but none of you'll give a shit, so just me. And Gabe, obviously. Okay. Question. Is terrain... Oh, I was going to deal with these, but sure. Is terrain that is over 4 inches tall, still over 4 inches tall for the purpose of Longshanks rule, if it has been smashed down, or do we have towers of rubble? Towers of rubble. Well, based on my experiences of watching buildings fall down, generally they don't stay particularly high. Even the steel beams, even if they were melted by jet fuel or not, that's right, thermite. Rob looks like he shouldn't be an extra on Due South. Best compliment I've had today. Thank you, I'm a good demon honest. So it is terrain that's over 4 inches tall, still over 4 inches tall. So effectively what happens is, with that smashdown rule, I think Colonel Cabbage is saying, is you turn it into rubble, but it doesn't change the physical dimensions. AOS Pete, thanks for subscribing, bud. It doesn't change the physical dimensions of the piece of terrain. Yeah, so the question is should it interact with something, like should it change its rules? I would say, Colonel Cabbage, is that currently, the issue with, like, the thematic sense of that is that obviously you smash something to rubble, it should be lower than where it started. However, I would feel, and I do feel, that in Age of Sigmar 3, rubble will have a keyword, and keyword kind of information like we have, and descriptions of what it is, like we have in 40k. So I think that there's a case to be made for that. But if I was a TO and someone asked if I smashed it, like if it was tomorrow, you smashed it and can I walk over it? I'd say yes. I would say it's lower than 4 inches, so for the purpose of Longshanks, you can walk over it, is what I'd say. FEC Royal Family Battalion with mounted kings instead of foot kings, legal or not, sparks crazy discussions in the FAC chat. Halolex, I heard this. This was one of the questions that comes up. Royal Family Battalion with mounted kings instead of foot kings, legal or not, sparks crazy discussion in the FAC chat. So what seems to be the crux of the point, Halolex? I'm fascinated to hear this. Shout out to the Termite Gang. Big shout out, Jolt Wargaming, if that's you. Want it to look dirty, but oh, okay. Dark Design problem. I've always seen the TO house ruling stuff as this endless cycle of people that are not involved in the writing process of the game, trying to rewrite the game for their own personal vision. But I'm cynical. Darker Design, I would agree with you. However, Dark Design, I'm with you. But normally what happens is a TO does have to make a decision at the weekend. They have to just be like, how is this used? Like, because there isn't enough. It's not like I want to rewrite how Croak's War Scroll works. What happens is two people at the table come from different perspectives on a book. They walk up and they say, I think this does this, I think this does this. Yeah, and if it isn't clear, and there are some cases where things aren't clear, the TO has to make a decision then. Now, what normally gets suggested is if you think you've got like something janky or something that works in a way that you're not like, that you think, oh, I've broken the game a little bit, like I'm a genius, you should always ask the TO ahead of time. Yeah, that should always be something that you do before, like, and then the TO can make a decision, and then you and your opponent don't have any like clash of, because the worst time for it to happen is when it's happening. Yeah, the best time for it to happen is beforehand with the TO, so you go into that match knowing what your plan is going to be. Yeah. At Games Workshop need a TO hotline. They could charge a premium rate and make a fortune. Fuck yes! That would be hotline bling. Terrain rules are probably the hardest thing to get right at the tabletop game, but Games Workshop seems to struggle even more than you would expect when it comes to terrain rules. Angle, I agree with that. Conversions. Some players made conversions. Are we really trying to apply logic to AOS? No, we're trying to apply a rule of best fit so that a group of people can play a game in a fun environment. Yeah? Again, the idea is to make it so that arguments don't happen and that games happen smoothly. Someone has to make a decision, and I think that's super okay. I've seen many really, really great TOs make really solid decisions on these things. Like AD from Sheffield Slaughter, you know, like when I was there, like Capital City Bloodbath, Darren and his team. Like, I've seen really, really solid, like, TOing, people making good decisions on the tabletop. And that's hard. That's why you normally have someone in who has to make a bunch of decisions, right? Like, they have to make some, like, pretty tough calls. That's what refs are, right? Are most allowing anvils of apotheosis? I would say no. I would say most events aren't allowing anvils of apotheosis. That's not really a FAQ. That's more of a TO kind of discretion. You can or you can't. Same with realms. You can or you can't. Like, that's not really. I don't think that's one of those fringe cases, really. Hey, Team and Cash. KO emergency event plates always comes up as it doesn't specify phase, but most TOs will rule it as just the shooting phase. Yes, very much so. And I did this exact thing. I got asked this question for the Super Series. It's really simple. The KO event plates artifact that you can put, it's a boat artifact, so it's a ship upgrade. Effectively, it allows you to be -1 to hit, I'm pretty certain. But then it doesn't specify when it ends. It just doesn't specify. So, like, do you have an artifact that now you're -1 to hit for the whole game? No. It's clearly meant for that phase. A TO can set it up to be that turn, but it's quite simply just not been FAQ'd well or properly, so it's the perfect thing. Ock Panda, I'm using your podcast here. I mean, it's awesome getting to listen live. Hey, welcome to the show, bud. Thanks for listening. I remember there was a WhatsApp group for rules pedantry. Pedantry is brilliant, but you do have to make a decision eventually, right? I think that's important. Gravity is the enemy of satisfying terrain rules. As long as a model needs to be on a base and put places that has a base, terrain is tough to make and feel as it should. Same with aircraft. I agree with Angle. I think terrain is still something that the game's abstract in of itself, right? You have 30 lads, and one guy's hitting from behind, but he's not even close. You're like, what the fuck's happening? Which brings up one of the questions, which I thought was a really good one, which I'm gonna ask now. So this is all on my Twitter. So, where is it? So this is from Lewis. Ludog. If two units are either side of a wall, right, within 3 inches, so they're engaged in combat effectively, the wall makes it so they're not visible. I have the reach. Can I still hit the unit? This just needs a general FAQ. Core rule state they can, but I've seen community argue this shouldn't be allowed out raw. So that makes loads of sense. So effectively, there's a wall. You can charge within 3, but even though you can't see the guy behind, and you're still within the inch or 2 inches or 3 inches, whatever the weapon range is, and it's like on that model, you can still target the model. Now, it doesn't make much narrative, I guess, sense, and it also doesn't make any real world in-game sense. Like, there's a brick wall in front of me, I've got a spear, but I can still stab a guy through it. I get you. However, pretty much set in stone, standard and played, as far as I know everywhere, is that that's okay. Yeah, I don't have any reason that I would change how that works right now. I agree with Ludog. I think it's something that needs looking at. I think that's a really great point, but it's just pretty much like you can stab them even though the wall's not there. I guess it's the same sort of situation where, you're locked in combat and you can take any model that you want. So even though Linus Rod, thanks for hosting us. That's fun. Even though let's say you got a monster who has attacked the edge of a unit that's strung out. Even though that's the case, and there's another unit that's fucking miles away, you would maybe take those models away. So there's always some abstraction, right? And you wouldn't take the models right next to the monster, who obviously in a real world fight be the ones that would die, and all the other guys are safe. And it's because in our heads everything's really moving around. I know. It's a game of abstraction, ultimately. But for me, I would just rule that as that's okay, because currently that's what happens anyway. That's the current situation. That's all good. We haven't covered Gargan objective ruling. Tim! Yes, I'm going to call Tim after. I began listening to the podcast too. I listened to my podcast at 1.3 normal speed, so many to get through in a week. So when it first caught a live show, I wondered why Rob was talking so slowly. No one has ever accused me of talking slowly, so that's useful. So you can stab through a hedge even if you can't see them, but not through a brick wall. No, you can stab through a brick wall. You absolutely can. Right now. Right now, you could, like a sheet metal wall, you could stab through. I know it doesn't make much sense, but whatever. So yeah. Anyone got any thoughts on that? Because I think some of this needs talking about in some situations. Well, logically, you should not be engaged then. That logically, Desert Sketch, and I agree. Maybe we'll make a soft cover keyword can be stabbed through, hard cover can't. Yep. So I think some of the keyword stuff that 40k has being transferred into Age of Sigmar will be excellent. The terrain rules in Age of Sigmar right now are awful because they're basically non-existent. Deploying, you can effectively do 0-inch charges if you have the fly keyword and you're stuck on top of a building. In the Super Series pack, I took that out. I was like, nah, that's not the way. This is the way. You must roll a 9, or if you're a Marauder, a 2. That's just once for Charlie. They should implement keywords to differentiate. I agree. Brad Glover, thanks for subscribing. Also, if you haven't checked out Brad's awesome conversions online, you should go check them out. Okay, Right, so what's the next question? So Martin Orlando's asked one about Lumineth Realm Lords, and I think there's a couple of good fringe cases in LRL that I would at least rule on. The two specifically, if I was a TO, again, this is if I was a TO, when I put this stuff up, no one in the world has to listen to me. This is my event, my TOing, this is what I would do. Yeah, because someone has to make those decisions, right? So, what was it? It was from Martin Orlando. About the Venari thing, my ruling would be that the unit gains a wizard keyword, but the unit counts as only as a single wizard for the purpose of abilities and objectives. Do you agree? So Owen's got some points on that, which I think are good. How do you feel on this? Okay, so I played Lumineth Realm Lord. Okay, so effectively, Lumineth Realm Lords have a unit, and only one model in that unit is a wizard, right? And that creates some, like, fucked up fringe cases. You know, like, for instance, being able to do D6 mortal wounds, or 6 mortal wounds to a wizard because of, like, I don't know, picking ability. It doesn't matter. Yeah? Maybe that only affects just that one wizard model and not the rest of the unit. I don't really see how that makes any sense, personally. I think if the champion's in the unit, it's a wizard. Yeah? End conversation. Yeah? But it's one wizard. Right? So you don't have like 8 wizards or fucking 12 wizards or whatever you want to have. It's one wizard. The whole unit, one wizard. And we have loads of cases of that. We have Sisters of the Sisters of Thorn. Sisters of Thorn. They're a unit that's a wizard. Pink Horrors, unit that's a wizard. Like, we got some really easy examples of that, which people just seem to want to fuck around with. Like, so I just say the whole unit's a wizard. It's one wizard, like, and yeah. And if you take that model out, pop, no longer a wizard. All good. I think that works. I would say no model in the unit can't have line of sight to a model to the unit is within 3 inches of. They don't count as engaged in combat. Desert Sketch. No, I hear what you're saying, but I wouldn't. What I'm saying about the brick wall conversation is that it's already played this way. Everyone plays this way. You'd have to unpick how everyone at the event would be playing. It would be weird, yeah. So that's myself, and I pretty much always go off what Nathan plays. Like in that situation, his micro mechanics are like much better than mine. So there we go. T-Man Cash. All the Lumineth in the unit are a wizard. Keyword. My take. T-Man Cash nailed it. That's what I would say as well. If that helps. The edge case is. The Breaker tried +1 to hit for targeting a wizard. The argument I've heard is that you can get the +1 versus Lumineth Realm Lords as long as you target that single model. No, bollocks. It's just the unit. Like, no. That's just people trying to argue for an advantage. No way. Whole unit, one wizard, throw a rock at it. So, the Warden of Venari warns is the High Warden's unit is a wizard, while this unit has 5 or more models. So the High Warden is a wizard, not the unit. No, I understand that. I understand the wording of it. But that's how I would treat it in a game for all those cases, for anyone who came up to me and asked a question, because that would be super simple. And then when someone's like, actually, you're not targeting the one character, so it's not +1 to hit, I'm like, fuck off. It's a wizard. Good. Carry on. Like, I'm not a very, like, it's pretty simple for me. So I've been trying to decide my next AOS army. Oh, Volsung Riot. This will be a nice little side bit. I want a really tanky objective holding army. My problem is, I love the aesthetic Fire Slayers, Magickin, and OBR. Well, Fire Slayers and OBR, I would say, are a better version of those two lists to do it. They're quite fun to paint. OBR is really fun, and it's got some long-range support. I would say OBR is the more dynamic of the 3 armies to play. Fire Slayers can be a bit samey and pretty much revolves around one unit. So if you want a fun unit, a fun army that can hold objectives and have some fun, I would pick OBR. If that helps. Sisters of Thorn does this great. The unit is a wizard while it has 2 or more models. No confusion there. Halalex. Yeah, baby. It's like super simple, right? Yeah. Super simple, that one, I think. All right, so the other fringe case for Lumineth Realm Lords that I'd see is Teclis's ability, which effectively, if you proc it, it does D3 mortal wounds to units in range. I would just have that be only enemy endless spells or spells, obviously, because then the problem is you can cast your own endless spell to use Teclis as like a gunboat. It's clearly not how it's designed. The rules writers missed a trick there. So it's just easy to just sort out. Oh, Panda, thanks for subscribing, bud. Okay, here's a tough one. For KO, if a ship can't make a normal move due to a restriction, Can it still fly high? E.g. Barrett Mornar's Opportunity Privateer and Admiral's Cunning Fleetmaster. For a KO, if a ship can't make a normal move due to a restriction, can it fly high? Do you want to know what? The person who I'd ask about this would be Tubbsy. So that is not something I would currently rule on, which is why I'd ask ahead of time, right? Because those are one of those ones where I would go and have a conversation. I don't feel as comfortable about that. So thanks for letting me ask that. If a KO ship can't make a normal move, so can't make a normal move. Normal move. I'm just going to write this down for myself for later. Can it still fly high? Still fly high. Because I'm not just going to decide some of these or be able to like work some of these out just off the fly. That's insane. Can it still fly high? Okay, I'll ask that question. It's super simple if you ignore Games Workshop's penchant for applying words to the wrong situation. It is. TOs have got a nightmarish situation. Like, fucking bless them. Bless them, like, bless them forever. Forever, because they've got, like, a fucking tough life. And they've got to come super prepped. I do this for work. I do it all the time. And even in those situations, I'm like, fuck. Like that one there. Like Owen saying, I would say yes, because fly high is an instant. It isn't a move, but a setup. It is. And you have to, like, really understand the difference between a setup, like a normal move. Like, the difference between a move and normal move as well is significant because it affects abilities where you're passing over models in the movement phase, or in the piling phase, or even the charge phase, because you can do extra, like, you do extra damage or proc abilities inside there, right? It's just wild. It does say instead of, though, as you need permission to do the previous. Do pink horrors split in the battle shock phase? To my understanding, yes. They count as slain, and then they split. Right? That's pretty much how I understood it. Big shout out, Speckles. What up? Ho ho ho, Merry Christmas. Also, Merry Christmas to everyone. I'm a very Christmassy guy. I watched Muppet Christmas Carol yesterday while I was doing some painting. Big into Christmas. If you guys aren't, or you don't celebrate Christmas, either because it's not like part of your culture or because, you know, it's a capitalist like holiday full of shit, like, I completely respect and understand that. Me personally, I love a bit of Fat Santa, can't get enough of it. Just, you know, let's be real, probably my life will end as me being a mall Santa somewhere in the world, and I'm excited by that. That's a fun prospect for me. Wait, Christmas cancelled this year? Oh shit, don't. Hello, Hawkeye. Hello, Hawkeye. Thanks for joining us. Thanks everyone for joining us. I love having you here. Okay. So I think we've done some rulings there. Tell you what, some fucking stupid answers in my fucking Twitters. Reply to this. Are flip flops allowed? Obviously not. You fucking tramp, Mark Wildman. What time does the bar open? Another question. The proper question and the correct answer should be around 8 a.m. I tried to explain to someone yesterday. Someone, is that a pea milk latte? This is indeed a pea milk latte. I treated myself today, and I'm very, very happy about it. Thank you so much. Right. You respect our cultural garments. I respect in everything. Promise. Are you joining the Brotherhood of Real Bearded Santas? Isn't there a town somewhere in America where all the Santas, they have like a Santa party, and all the Santas cause so much trouble that they're banned from the town because they all get so drunk and fight? Desert Sketch, I'm really sorry about that, bud. Love the deep Rob lore. Right, okay, so Zaviel ask a question. In the KFAQ, they state that you're only able to use a spell on the bottle in the hero phase because you can't use a spell outside of its normal usability. But nobody applies that ruling to Ether Gold. In the rules for Ether Gold, it's stated that you can only use them if it would be legal to use a Triumph. A Triumph is only legal when choosing the unit. That is, as it's written. So rules as written, it would be Ether Gold needs to be activated when choosing the unit. I understand that, Zaviel. But as I understand it from other people, I would have to, again, rules lawyering, I have to go and find like the specific wording and come back to you. But as I understand it from like the intimate like details is that there's some wording that effectively means you can choose to use the Aether Gold differently to a Triumph because ultimately, yeah, that's what I've seen, and like that's how it's played as well, pretty much everywhere. If it makes you think not, like I'll go back and look at it, but like as I understand it, every TO that I've talked to has ruled that you can use it after, so like you can use the Aether Gold whenever you want, basically. I don't know if you've seen that. Right, so one of the other questions which I thought was really good, really good, is, and super weird. So this is from Parry G. Gallister, yeah, or something like that. The Skaven have a spell that stops you from flying. You, Legions of Nagash, cast a spell in your next hero phase that lets you fly. Pinions or Nerf's War Scroll. Can you fly? Should be a yes, I think, but would be welcome ruling to avoid it coming up. It's actually fascinating. I would like normally, Beard and Brew, thanks for subscribing, bud. That's a really interesting one. I hadn't really thought about that. Stop fly, but then what if I give myself fly? You know, that's really interesting because based on some of the other fringe cases, or not even fringe cases, some of the other interactive cases that we've seen, for instance, always strikes last, always strikes first, those sorts of situations, it's normally the rule that applies after takes precedent because effectively you're changing the War Scroll via one ability, and then afterwards you're changing the War Scroll, and that normally overrides core rules. So the latter effect takes precedence. So in that situation, I would say that you can fly. So you turn off fly earlier, and then you apply fly again. So you override it, which I think is brilliant. Right? And I haven't seen that fringe case come up. I don't know if anyone else has seen that fringe case come up in their games. As a Skaven player, though, I would say, no, you can't fly, it's dirty eels. And if the person asking me was an eels player, I'd obviously rule that you couldn't fly, whatever the situation. No, I'm joking. Am I joking? I'm not sure. So in FAQs, there's a ruling that if you take a battalion from another allegiance, all those models count as allies, correct? Now, how does this work if you want to run the Slaves to Darkness Battalion Runebringer with all units with the mark of Nurgle in a Nurgle allegiance that are allies because of the battalion or not allies because they're all marked Nurgle? So, it's a Slaves to Darkness Battalion, yeah? It's a Slaves to Darkness Battalion, but you're then going to put, because it's all got keyword allegiance Nurgle, now there is something about battalions being locked to battle tomes, pretty much. This is a list writing one. Battalions wrapped. There's one about battalions being locked to battle tomes, and there's also cases where they're not. Like Beasts of Chaos, you obviously like Phantasmagoria, Fate, or whatever. Like you obviously then you can take them in the keyword allegiance. I would say that that's fine personally. Like, but I would have to go back and look to see if there's an actual like full rules as written like thing on it. That one's like I'd probably get you'd ask that at like list building, Tim, and I know Tim, you know what you're talking about, so that's a good one personally. Is it socially acceptable to play Flyer Slayers? Also hard note from me. Battalions and allies. Now that is normally the case. But what about the Beast of Chaos one makes it that you can override that? I'm gonna have to check that out. Thanks, Tim. Great question. Great one. The unit, if a unit is split behind and in front of a wall with a thickness less than an inch, okay. If a unit is split behind and in front of a wall with thickness less than an inch high, but height more than half an inch, more than an inch up and down the wall, does this affect unit coherency? If a unit is split behind and in front of a wall with thickness less than an inch, but height more than, no, because you're still within an inch, right? Because you don't measure up and down, you only measure up and down for movement. If that helps you, Joystick Crayons, you're talking about measuring because of movement, where you measure up and down a wall, but you don't do that for coherency, you just measure flat. So, same way from an objective, you measure from the center point, you don't go like up and down a piece of building towards a model at the edge of the 6 inches. Runebringer can only be taken as slaves, but you could take Plague Touch in Nurgle. Owen, what is it that makes it that you can't take Runebringer in like whatever keyword Nurgle? Is it that I'm gonna have to go look at that? Thanks, guys. That's a good one. I think it depends on what keywords battalion has. I think it does, but I'm gonna have to like that's one for my own personal knowledge that I'm gonna go brush up on. So I really appreciate the question. Thanks, Tim. I wanted to run 30 run and charge knights. That sounds awesome. It's just a bit of a heartbreak if it doesn't work. In Legion of Nagash, the Vampire Battalion can't be used in the Vampire Allegiance. Only a Grand Alliance death. It's daft. They can't do anything about that. That's just shitty rules writing, really. It's because they have the mark of Nurgle and not the Nurgle keyword. Yes. Okay, Slaves to Darkness stuff. Right, perfect. Thank you, Owen. So in that particular situation, the reason Beasts of Chaos are able to take their battalion and put them into another allegiance, let's say the Beasts of Chaos Nurgle battalion, which gives them all gives them keyword Nurgle. Keywords can be found at the bottom, obviously, of your war scroll. Look at the bottom of your war scroll, there's all your keywords. Most of the stuff works off those keywords. However, if when you play Slaves to Darkness, you just give a mark of Nurgle to a unit and it doesn't gain the Nurgle keyword, does it? Okay. I think that's the case. Anyway, I'm going to go look at that. I'm going to stop answering the question badly without having read it properly. So, it does gain the thanks, Stu. Hope you're well. Yes, it does gain the Nurgle keyword. It does gain the Nurgle keyword. All right, I'm going to go read that up. That's a fun one. Thank you very much. Troggoth Hag has a keyword Fell Water and Troggoth, which is the best thing ever. Oh my God, that is the best thing ever. Who is excited about the new Spider-Fang thing coming out from White Dwarf and potentially being able to recycle a giant Arachnarok if they've done the keywords wrong? Always exciting. So the FAQ is that battalions are keyword locked, but the Beast of Chaos FAQ added the relevant God keywords to the Beast of Chaos battalions, so they can be in either Beast of Chaos or God armies. I appreciate that, bud. Thank you so much. Okay. All right. Next question. That's a really good one, though. I'm going to come back to that. Do you know what? Next Thursday next week, we're going to come back and I'm going to answer all these questions again. So if you're enjoying this now, or if you're listening back on the podcast and you want to come back to it, so we'll do this again next Thursday. We'll do like the redux on this show. And if anyone's got anything they want to message me about, then please do feel free. Maybe controversial, but I wish they brought keywords into the Heresy, even just a way to quickly check rules. Keywords is just a much better system than like universal special rules. I really do think that. Like, there's obviously a lot of like the conversations we're having today, mate. Like, especially if you're new, you must be like, "Fuck me." But honestly, these are like fringe cases, and it's because the company are really bad at quality control. Like, the game could be like very, very like clean and neat. They just like, and this is the problem as well, because the game isn't clean and neat, you have all sorts of people pissing and moaning at each other. And I completely respect and understand that, because they're like, and someone's like, I don't see this being particularly strong. And you're like, well, you know, like, I understand that, like, but the other person does think it's strong. So how do you make those two people like have a decent conversation? And that's really, really hard and challenging for TO. And TO's already doing so much. They're organising the event. They're trying to make sure everything runs on time. They're doing so many other things. So I really do think giving tools to TOs to just be like, here's a simple FAQ that we've done. You don't have to follow it at all. You don't even have to agree with it, but it's real easy. So you can just answer any questions you want, because they're the ones that we're going to be using in my event. Because I'm going to have to answer these same questions at my event. So why don't I just put it down on paper and everyone can collab on it? Seems very simple. It's really easy. Mainly because I've got to do it for myself. So I'm just really crowdsourcing smarter people than me to do this. So having an FAQ show or general QA show is awesome. Oh, thanks, T-Man Cash. I have a friend with a spider gobbo. He's insanely excited. I am to fight them. Gorka Walker, I'm really excited, babe. I'm really excited. And like, there's so much that they need, though. Like an army-wide. I wouldn't mind an army-wide 5-up DPR on the spiders. Like, I'm being serious. Like, that's their allegiance ability. I know that's strong, but fuck yeah. One follow-up question. Out of OBR Fire Slayers and Makekin, which would make me the least that guy at the table? There is no that guy at the table, baby. There is none of that. I understand that, though. I would say it's OBR. OBR is at least honest. Do you not think? Do you think OBR is like at least honest with what it does? It fires a couple of catapults at you and it sends some wankers into your face. Like, I think it's... I don't know. I think that's the Maggotkin one, though, because when you're talking about the Maggotkin build, aren't you really only talking about Blight Kings? Like, you can do okay other Nurgle builds. I'm not saying you can't, but like top tier competitive, like you're talking about that Blight King spam. So really, like, that's just boring. That's boring for a new person. Volzon don't do the Maggotkin thing. Like, I mean, the thrice fold list is cool. 3 big fatties, some Plague Bearers and Be'lakor is a great list. There's a guy called Steve Follows in the Butcher's GT. He's running the list. Might be able to get linked in the chat. That's a cool list. That's like super dynamic. It's quite tough to use for a new person. And OBR, I think, is easier to use for a new person, and I think you can be more dynamic with it eventually. What the hell is the last rumor engine? I don't look at the rumor engines ever. OBR is super straightforward. It is now, yeah, absolutely. Blight Kings for sure. Do you think? Hey, Helgamar, hope you're well. Do you think all the attacks of the Spider Riders need to have Venom too? No, just the spiders. I feel like what they should make it like more of a beast army. If you're talking about the spider army, it should be like the Gobbos are there controlling the spiders, but it's really the spiders that do the fucking damage, and the Gobbos are just there being classic Gobbos. So I wouldn't make the Gobbos particularly tough. I just make, their power is that they can control this like vicious spider, and then just make the spiders absolutely kick ass. The kind of opposite of like what you expect Chaos Knights to be, where the mounts are like okay. But it's a Chaos fucking Knight that does the damage. Doesn't really do the damage, but you know what I mean? Fire Slayers feels the worst MP an opponent has, says T-Man Cash. Yeah, I know, but now you can just fire a goddamn shark at them. They can't pile in 3 inches. You're loving life. Which is fun. Is the issue with Fire Slayers that 4+ DPR, are there other things about it? MJ Pegasus, I would say the issues with Fire Slayers is that they play in a very concentrated block. They play around a bunch of characters, which means they ignore spells, and it gives them their additional DPR and a bunch of other stuff. And then, of course, they get to strike twice. They get to strike first in combat and then fight again, which is just horrific. And they do phenomenal output. They're good. They're fighty, like dwarves should be. They're fighty. They're weirdly defensive, which is weird because they're naked. But they're really, really fighty, which is awesome. But it's the fact that they strike first and they can fight twice. Fight twice is just not cool as a mechanic generally. It's just not. I've talked about this on the show time and time again, but really, the games designers don't really understand what they're doing, especially when they do it for like a CP, or they just do it like in an innate ability. What they're doing is they're basically halving the point of the unit, or they're making it so you've got 2 of that unit in, because it's not just in situ on table. What happens is you will get to apply it twice at location. So it's like, a good example would be Gorgrunners that I was running the other day. So I had 12 in a unit. It was like 560 points. It was stupid. But I could only ever put, let's say, 6 into Archeon. Let's do that. 6 pigs into Archeon, because that's all that would fit around his base. Well, now, if I had fight twice, I can do 12 pigs into Archeon. Yeah? They're just, they don't really understand, they just don't play the game loads. For understand how good it is. Okay. Do you like the rule of snarflings? They hit better the enemy's damage. I think that's a good idea. What the fuck is a snarfang? What the fuck is a snarfang? Sorry, snarfang. Sorry, Victor. I don't know what a snarfang is. Please enlighten me. Okay, with the new Snake Battalion for Daughters of Cain and them getting 2d6 run, does spending a CP for the 6-inch, does it change the total number of each dice? No, it changes the result to a 6. So you would end up with it doesn't change the dice at all. It just changes it to a 6, or one of the dice is a 6. Either way, so it's either a 6 or a 7. I think it's just a flat 6 because it changes the result to a 6. But just go check the wording. It's either it changes one dice to a 6 and it becomes a 7 total, or it just becomes a flat 6. It's one of the two. Turn 3 yours is worse. Yeah. Snowfang equals beast group. I'm not reading that. I'll read it later, Victor. Read Snarfang War Scroll. Okay, never read that in my life. Nathan has. Here's a question that will come up. If you summon Ambush wholly within 6 inches of the board edge and you're within 6 inches of objective that's 12 inches from the board edge, answer yes. Because the core rule FAQ states that wholly within 12 inches is 12 inches or less, therefore, like tennis, on the line is in. Yep, that comes up quite a bit, Colonel Cabbage. I got that one in the bank already. That's a fairly easy one. Right, to Twitter, to some more of these questions I was taking on. Can I use my Transformers toys as count as Riptides? Both 40k question and useless question. Yes, sure. What's the cut-off for rules, i.e. could a Codex or White Dwarf Tome launched that weekend be used? Different TOs are going to have different opinions on that. I don't think that really requires like any standardization in answering. So it really depends on them. Personally, for me, I'd put it like it has to be after the FAQ. Otherwise, you're just giving an unfair advantage to people where something totally bent could be in there. So it would have to be after the FAQ, which is normally now, according to Games Workshop, 4 weeks out from release. So after the FAQ is when I would only allow something to play. Are 3D printed minis okay? Fine with me. That's all good. Alternative minis are fine with me. Or that's fine. Before the game, both players roll a dice. The winner either chooses the realm on their army list, no realm at all, or they can choose sides and have the first drop. The other player then gets whichever the winner the roll-off didn't choose. Yeah, I would never put into... like, in any tournament I run, you don't roll off to see who gets to decide which fucking realm you're in. I don't think anyone's... so it's a big no from me, would be my thoughts on that. Anyone in the chat got any different thoughts on that? Do we get extra victory points for pulling reinforcements from our prison pocket? Yeah, sure. That's fine. Okay. Can we punch KO players in the dick and smash their ironclads? Fucking love Mick Wendell. No, Mick. Soz bud. Okay, these are fun. Wait, does the Drakfoot clan ignore DPR ability extend to mortal wounds from spells? I'd have to check. That. That's a really interesting one. Drakfoot. Fringe case, fun one. For Gargants, can I just have a Man Crusher and take the objective in place of Arcane Power like Games Workshop seem to intend? Okay, so the Gargant one. For everyone, if you don't know, Gargants have the ability to flip how you control objectives. I'm not talking about kicking. There's two issues with the Gargants. There's kicking, super cool with me. I think it's a cool little rule. I think it's really fun. I think it's not the most powerful army in the world. I think it changes the shape of the game. It makes it quite interesting. Like, it's a fun, unique challenge. Awesome. That is over there. That's a completely different thing. Then there's the Allegiance ability called Mighty Makes Righty. Mightier Makes Rightier? Whatever, the fucking one. That's over on this side. Yeah, that's got a really stupid FAQ, and I would rule against that. I would just say no. They're like, I can. No. You play the normal rules for the battle plan. However, your models count as X number of models. Super simple. Is everyone cool with that? Hey, Canhammer. I was talking about you earlier. I was saying if I wanted an example of a good TOing, you should listen to Darren from Canhammer TV. I said that earlier. Big love. What's your morning beard routine? Okay. If everyone wants to know, get really personal. I wake up, I get up, I have some muesli and a cup of tea, and I go in the shower and I wash with Imperial Leather soap all over my body, making sure to do my butt crack a lot, just in case I've like smuggled some marauders up there. And then I get out of the shower and I dry off with the towel. That's the whole routine. And then I dry wind. Blow the wind. Jam is actually lunch. You don't get jam till later. That's how you get up in the morning. Motivate yourself for jam. Doesn't that ruling mean it's basically impossible for Gargants to win in place of Arcane Power? No, because Gargants are characters, and they can move onto objectives. They're heroes, Tim Wheelsbarrow. They can move onto objectives like everyone else can. They have characters, and they have very solid characters that are big fucking dudes. That's it. And if that's an issue, like, I wouldn't throw, like, it's an insane, like, fringe case. Gargants might not be able to play in place of Arcane Power, although I don't think that's the case, because they can just walk onto objectives like any other hero, yeah? So they're fine, and they can do that, right? But then you would throw out the baby with the bathwater, and just be like, maybe there's this one fringe case, versus the whole fucking rest of the game. Not into it. Like, and it's dumb. It's dumb. It's fucking dumb. Does anyone else think it's not dumb? I'm out on it. Speaking of tennis, okay, good. Imperial Leather? Yeah, Imperial Leather soap. Imperial Leather soap's like a cheap soap that you get. What is Imperial Leather soap? Have you guys never not used Imperial Leather soap? It's just regular soap. Cheap ass soap. Cheap soap. Prison soap. Yeah? So, like, you know when you go into like a pub, yeah, and there's like 4 lads with their dogs, and they've been there for like 40 years, and then you go into the washroom, and they don't have one of those things that dispenses soap in a liquid form. It's just a bar of soap that's got some kind of that kind of soap. Yeah. You got to brush the crumbs from your beard. Yeah. Don't you get your jam unless you check your marauders? That is conflicting, Dan. Don't drop me a message about it if you want to. An Old Spice. Okay. Is that where you get your soap from? Where do I get my soap? I missed some of the questions. That's how I washed as a kid. How does everyone else wash? What the fuck are you guys doing? Are you exfoliating? Okay, I mean, if you want to, that's fine. There's a whole bunch of, there's a whole world out there. Put some peach soap on your face, exfoliate, apply some, live your life. If you care that much, it's beautiful. And I'm really, really proud of you. Sometimes I just walk out in the rain. Just rub it on. Do Liberators in the Shadowhammer Compact Battalion from the DOK book count as battle line? So if it's a Daughters of Cain Allegiance, then no. Because they're from a different army and they would count as allies and therefore not be allowed to be battle line. Hey, no more Darkling Coven. Can we all shout out Steve Dooley in the chat? What a fucking babe. Okay, question, Owen. Fuck me. I was helping you. Right. Khorne Demon Prince, Bloodslit Ground Command ability, which halves the run and charge roll. Can Destiny Dice circumvent the ruling as the charge dice cannot be modified? Thoughts? Ooh. Okay. Halves the run and charge roll. Can Destiny Dice circumnavigate the ruling? So when is Destiny Dice is choosing? I'd have to look at the wording, wouldn't I? Destiny Dice is choosing the result, and the command ability is halving it. So you choose the result before you halve. I'm going to come back. Let's read that one up. That's a fun one. I'll go check it out. Thanks very much. Hey, Gabawaki, what's going on? Now go to the Cities of Sigmar tome to read up on the Steam Tank lore. Why, Linus? Why? What's going on with that? Do pre-game moves happen before you decide who uses the first turn? Yes, pre-game moves do before you decide. And if two people have pre-game moves, you roll off to see who gets to choice to do the pre-game move first. Effectively, it won't modify the dice. Pandora's box is being opened. Yeah, it halves still. It's replacing, not plus minus. Still halved, I think. I still think it's halved as well, because you choose the result then halved, is how I think it works. But I'll go read that more intently and put that out. So that's a fun one. Destiny Dice. Okay. I'm tempted to buy a box of Stormcast Secretaries just for the Obi-Wan head. Is there somewhere I can seek help for this quotation? What would you do with the Obi-Wan Kenobi head? Just have it just on the side. If you change a run roll to a 6 with Kairos over, it cannot be modified, so will not be halved. Ooh, Iron Gutsman, good shout. Fucking, that's good. Yeah, but Destiny Dice can't be modified. Okay. So Destiny Dice can't be modified. Kairos' dice can't be modified. So that might be the case where it doesn't apply after. Because if you can't modify them, you can't halve them, right? Again, I'm going to read both. Come back to that one. Appreciate that. Let me hear your rant about how shit the Gargants are up. Gav War. I don't have one. I've had that conversation, Gav War. It's fine. If Kairos makes a run roll of a 1, can you use the on the double command ability to treat it as being a 6? If Kairos makes a run roll of a 1. If Kairos makes a run roll of 1 but it can't be modified, that's a great question. So generally the modification of Destiny Dice, why is it a question though? Because it's about priority. It's about ordering, right? It's about ordering on both Destiny Dice and Kairos' dice is the real question. It's not like the case of the situation. It's the ordering, because they can say, all right, that's a fascinating one. That's fun. So what we're saying is the ordering on Destiny Dice hasn't been clarified. Okay. It comes down to if the dice or the charge is modified. Yeah, absolutely. Selling them. Guys, it's probably a really dumb question, but if taking KO Barrack Thring, can you take 1 in every 4 as Dwarden, so Gotrek becomes an option? Does this mean you can take Gotrek and allies? So I would say that makes sense. Has he got the Dwarden keyword? Gotrek? That seems okay. I'm going to double check. This seems like one I can answer just looking at the app. Is the app not updated? Someone recently said that the app wasn't updated. I don't know if that's the case. That sounds weird. Right, Gotrek. Okay. He does have the Dwarden keyword, so yeah. So you can include him. You can include him as in Barrack 3, and also add allies. That makes sense. Can we discuss get rid of the double turn thing? Not called the double turn. It's called the priority roll. You fucking monster. I was walking in because the question was legendary. Why was it skipped? Please explain yourself. Third me. I didn't see what your question was, sir. And so I don't know what the question was. Please re-ask me. In City Sigmar, some artifacts that give more bonuses if your hero is not on the mount. Does it work on Steam Tank, Hurricaneum, and Phoenix because their water goals are weird and they technically don't have mounts? The Phoenix has a mount, right? Does it not? Some artifacts that give more bonuses if your hero is not on the mount. Does it work on Steam Tank? Okay, so effectively, are you giving bonuses to the Hurricaneum or the Priest, or are you giving it to like the Anointed, or are you giving it to Phoenix as well? That's a great one. So that give more bonuses to hero, not the mount. Does it work on a Steam Tank Hurricane? No, it just works on the hero, right? They're mounted. Like, the Commander is mounted on the Steam Tank, the Priest is mounted on the Hurricaneum, and the Anointed is mounted on the Phoenix? Right, fucking, what else? Games Workshop gave a ruling that the rule that comes after takes precedent, hence the Snesh fight. App does not have the new Daughters of Cain and Heed Knights for me. Fuck. Fuck. Diatrine. They're a multi-million-pound company. COVID is not like a reason. Like, it's not a reason. They're just taking the piss with the AOS app in lieu of their shit 40k app, which is crap and awful on delivery. John Thompson, what's happened? Opened for the first time in ages, went to Games Workshop, going to get the free Witch Elf, and the manager says it's only for those getting a new army. How can this company consistently be full of shit? I don't know, but they do so well here. When an artifact or ability prevents... I'm sorry about that as well, and I hope you're well. When an artifact or ability prevents a unit from being slain, heals it. Wait, when an artifact or ability prevents a unit from being slain. Okay. So you can't be slain. Heals it, and negates any further wounds remaining, reallocated to them. Does this include mortal wounds? Yes. And heals it, negates it. Joyce, you'd have to, sorry, I'm not really sure what you're asking there. Like, you'd have to give me the cases and I'd talk about it. Alex, Gotrek Scroll states you can't take other allies, but in the case where he's a Dwarden, he's a keyword Dwarden, he's not being put in as an ally, he's a keyword Dwarden, so you can put keyword Dwardens in 1 in 4 is keyword Dwarden, Cities of Sigmar, so it's Gotrek, and you can still take your 400 point of allies because he's not an ally in that situation. He's keyworded in, which makes sense, I would say. I'd say that's fine with me. Gotta wish this company could be consistent. Yep. That'd be surely the easiest thing to deal with from home as well. Agreed. Figured that's why. Was asking if we want 40k currency rules in AOS and why not. Whew. Hey, John Thompson, big love. Right. That's a whole bunch to unpick. And we should probably talk about that like on a whole show. So how's that third me? I'll come back to that because I think that'll be a really interesting conversation. Because we definitely know we're getting smaller boards. I would quite like to see how they deal with morale in 40k, moved into Age of Sigmar. That would be freaking sweet. It's quite a nice way of dealing with it, and it's better for low bravery armies, which, you know, there's a real have and have not situation with bravery in Age of Sigmar at the minute, where, you know, like you've got a unit that's like, I don't know, bravery 4, let's talk about some squigs. You know, they just lose a couple of units, that just the rest are running away just fucking cuz. And then there's guys that are immune to Battle Shock or Bravery 10 or whatever the situation. So the way 40k does its morale would be really cool in Age of Sigmar, I think. The unit coherency would also be cool, and I feel the Venari thing points us towards the fact that we're going to see that in the future. But I would have to think about it more. Maybe even play some games with it and see what the situation is. Okay. Whole show. Yeah, I think that would be fine. Not really FAQ, but how ethically do you deal with a rule like Mortek Crawlers, kill a model shot? How often should you tell an opponent that you have that shot every time they string out a unit That's a tough one, Iron Gutsman. I think you tell them like, you just tell them that you tell them at the start of the game. You just be like, look, if you string out a unit, I can pick a unit out and battle shock half the unit off. I think that's fine. The rest of it, honestly, I don't know what else you could really do in that situation. It's meant a tournament, especially, is meant to be a game of like, you know, you kick yourself after you, be like, that's my mistake. I shouldn't have done that. But as long as you told them before, I think that's super fine. Also in 40k, just talking about bravery, I think that goes. Talking about bravery real quick, sorry, they've changed it so that you can only use the insane bravery, or as we know in Age of Sigmar, inspiring presence once per game. I think that's actually a really big positive. I think that's excellent. I'd like to see that put in as well, as long as they also change the other battle shock / morale changes that we see from 40k, because I think those are genuinely really good. Yeah. I would say that you explain clearly at the start, and then after that, it's their own fault, ultimately. Zad Guy, there's no stupid questions. Well, really shouldn't say that to this Twitch chat. Maybe a stupid question. Is there any system during a tournament to reduce or score extra points for each round for being a good and nice opponent, like to make the event more positive? People have tried that in the past. Ultimately, in a tournament, you know, you've seen soft scores, whether that be for painting or whether that be for sportsmanship. And there's the Australians have got a really good system where they have an etiquette checklist, like, did my opponent explain all of their rules? Was my opponent on time? Those sorts of things I think are like completely valid to try and help build like a healthy like group and community. But ultimately, you need community leaders and people that push from the front, be that TOs and be that the community themselves. I mean, because that's going to move to every like sphere of what we do, right? Like being positive on the tabletop, like is a hard thing to ask someone to be if they're not someone who is naturally gregarious. You know, someone might be quiet. You know, like in chess, I don't think you're even allowed to talk, right? You know, some people are quiet and they should be allowed to be quiet, and they shouldn't have to like conform to be a party boy entertainer just to make someone smile. So I think putting that in place is hard. I think just explaining the rules clearly and consistently, telling people what you intend to do and calling out your dice beforehand is valuable. But really, it's a cultural thing, and having conversations with stuff. I think one of the really big problems a lot with what we do for tournaments and everything else is we just throw a whole bunch of people in the mix, and there's not really a lot of like hand-holding. And I feel that there could be a lot more hand-holding, right? Like as a community and as a group, you know, your little local gaming community could work to improve each other as players, and also like pick up your general like sportsmanship level, so that when you go to events, you're good examples. You know, people like WS10 are a good example of that. They're always trying to like play fair and well. Yeah. What up, Tristan? Is more like fantasy battle shock crunch. Oh, Okpanda. Okay, so I've been talking about the 40k morale test, and I'll talk about that quickly. So in 40k, effectively what happens is if you fail a leadership test, very much like battle shock that you're doing in Age of Sigmar, so like, you know, whatever, like they're leadership 10 in that situation, but it would be bravery 10 for us. You roll a d6, and they've lost 10 models. You roll a d6, you obviously have failed that test. After that, one model runs away, and then as long as the unit's not under half or a third, can't remember what it is, like you roll a dice for every model in the unit, and then on a roll of a 1 they run away, but if they're under a certain percentage, then on a 1 and 2 they run away. So you could lose up to a third, but that's much different to when you have a unit and they fail that test, the whole fucking unit runs away. You know, like it would be super good for Gobbos, it would be super good for Beasts of Chaos, it would be super good for like a whole bunch of armies where they take quite a lot of attrition damage. So yeah, you're still going to have some run away, but you're not going to have as many run away, and it doesn't matter to Obiak, it doesn't matter to demons. You know, like it's pretty good. It's quite effective on multi-wound models, because yeah, you might lose 2 or 3 multi-wound models in the other setup. I like it. I think it's really good. Anyway, is what I'm trying to say. What is the best distance of your model from the tabletop, and why is it 40 feet? Don't know. If I successfully use a pants ability, is it acceptable to actually put the model in my pants? Yes, that's fine. Can the Blue Scribes cast endless spells with their Scroll of Sorcery? I should be able to answer this by looking at the War Scroll. Let's have a look. Unless there's an FAQ and someone knows the answer to this. There's so many questions. I agree with Reese's view. I'll come back to that. That's a good point, Angle. 1 second. Wait, so what's the score of sorcery? Once in each of the hero phases, when the small attempts to cast a spell, instead of making a casting roll, you can say it will read from the score of sorcery. If you do so, roll dice on 2+, automatically cast it, not being bound. Yeah, an endless spell is a spell, right? It's not. Is it an endless spell? Spell or endless spell? Cast a spell or endless spell. I'd have to check the word and see if casting endless spells is cast as different, but I'm pretty certain that's fine. But I'll double check. I'll double check. See that, that guy. Look after yourself. Yeah, so endless spells are defined as spells in malign sorcery. Page 53. So it's a yes. Tick. There you go. So the blue scribes can. Thanks, Owen. Angle says, talking about sportsmanship, I agree with Reese's view on the matter. This is Reese from Frontline Gaming. I'll do it in his voice if you want. Most people just give max soft scores, unless they have a particularly bad experience. He's a really nice guy, actually. So anyone actually using... Not that the impression makes you think he's not. So anyone actually using the soft scores properly is actually giving a below average score. And some people just aren't super entertaining at the table, so it doesn't score as high, which is hardly fair. It's fine as a side award, but it shouldn't be relevant to overall tournament position, which has always been my statement as well. I agree with that fundamentally. I think your code of conduct at the table is so important to give people a positive play experience. Talking about Steve, who is a fucking treasure to play on the tabletop. If you roll really well, or your army is super strong, and you fuck your opponent up with it, being a good winner will determine how your opponent reacts to being beaten. It's true. It's true. Is it a wizard? Only wizards can cast endless spells. Dave Fraser, great question. Is it a wizard? Let's go find out. It pretty much definitely is a wizard. By the way, oh, amazing. Oh, no, I've closed it off, haven't I? Like a classic. Sorry, podcast dudes. Hope you're well. Look after yourselves. Definitely a wizard. There we go, keyword. No problem, Gabe. Hope you're well. Spot on. That's your best impression. Colonel Cabbage, I know people getting... So yeah, to give you a quick personal experience about the FAQ guidance, so you can cast cogs with no bonuses to cast. I know, buddy. They're going to be going so fast. Right. So. One of my personal experiences of soft scores at tournaments was I was at a tournament. I won't give the names of the people, but I'll give their job titles. So I was in Derby playing at an event, and I just played someone, and it was one of the very first independent events I'd ever been to. I've been to like a South Coast GT, and I've been to a few others, so maybe I had like 5 or 6 under my belt, but this was the first time you ever had to write down the scores of the event. Thanks, John Thompson, for donating £3. He says, hippo character in tactical gear does tactical flanking maneuver. Had gestures. I sometimes think he's trying to make me, like he's trying to unlock me like a fucking Mercurian candidate or something. But anyway, so I was playing against the head of Books and Box Games. And I didn't know that I was, right? Because I didn't know the fuck he was. And then I'd played against very far time back in the day. You used to be able to do. You used to be able to redeploy. Not liberators, whatever they're called. Fucking, I can't remember. But the banner hammer guys is what they were called. You used to be able to redeploy them within 3 inches of an enemy army. It was rubbish. Yeah. And then charge. It was so dumb. And so then on this little tick sheet, it was like, how was my opponent? Well, my opponent was lovely. Tick. Yeah. What was your opponent's army like to play? I was like, awful, because it's like a 0. So I was like, Milky Badger, thanks for subscribing. So I was like, no, tick that off, that's awful. Anyway, so then I went up to the head developer for Age of Sigmar, who was for some reason working at this independent event, and handed it in. Again, did not know that was his job. And handed it in, and then I turned around, as you do. I was like, cool, turn around, and I go, oh, whoa. And I was like, what is it? It's like, you've marked him down. I was like, yeah, it's really shit to play. It wasn't even Vanguard Wing, Tristan. It was way back in the day before even Vanguard Wing. I was like, yeah, it was super shit to play. Like, everyone else has to move, and he just teleports like the most offensive melee unit in the game at that time, within 3 inches of me, like, and then charges. Like, why would that be fun to play? It's terrible game design. And he was just like, "Well, it's really bad, really bad," loudly in front of the entire like tournament, loudly. And I felt really embarrassed. I felt like quite ashamed. I was like, "Oh, that's like, I didn't know." He's like, "You meant to mark everyone as full," and I was like, "Well, then why do we do it? Like, what's the point of it?" So I went over to the head of Books and Box Games, and I gave him a cuddle, and I was like, "Hey, dude, I'm really sorry. I didn't know like that's a bad thing to do, because obviously when you get given a list of questions, you just answer the questions as you see fit. Like, as you see, I put down that you were really fun to play. I gave you a big tick. I just thought your army was shit to play." And he was like, "Okay." But that was really embarrassing for me, and I remember that all the time. And now I think the very idea that you would ever instigate that for anyone else is fucking... I mean, also, don't be that cunt who says that, and be that guy, yeah, who literally embarrasses people in front of everyone else because you're a twat. Don't do that as well. It would be a key part. But, so yeah, I'm not for soft scores in any way, shape, or form. Anyway, I think it's a terrible idea for scoring people down and up. So, no names, though. No names. Anyway, can KO riggers and Sky Ones use their Hitch's ability in their WS after the Sky Vessels move? I'm sorry, Grinaldi, I'll have to read it. It's a terribly written book, so I'll come back to it. Like, I obviously don't have the command of the KO book like everyone else does, mainly because you need a fucking degree, and also no one gives a shit, apart from like 8 people. But I'll read it. You need to wash your mouth out with Anyway, so that's fun. Alright, okay, what time are we at? Oh, nice. We've done a bit more than I wanted. Alright, so obviously there's loads of questions still to answer. Loads I didn't do from Twitter. So we'll come back to this next Thursday. Q&A. And I'll try and answer some of these in full. And I'll try and like put them up. And I'm going to also, at some point over the next week, put a blog post up on the Honest Wargamer, which will be the answers to a load of these questions. Now, again, they're just my answers if I was going to be running an event. That's all. So you don't have to use them. They're not law. Someone else in the world doesn't have to listen. You can't use it in front of like your mate and be like, "Look at this." But it might be like a nice agreed to standard. Like, okay, there's this twat somewhere who's like just written some stuff down. Like, maybe let's just use that. And then you don't have to argue with your friends, which is nice. Yeah, I get to be the twat. And then that's fine, because that won't change anything that's happened in my life ever. Good. Yeah. So has this helped? Like a quite genuine question. I'd like some feedback. Has this been helpful, and would you like to see this again? It is the question. So I don't know what you guys think or don't think. I mean, also it's super useful for me for when coverage starts again in events. And that's kind of what one of my eyes is on. So when something comes up on the tabletop, I'll be like, okay, I know the answer to that. That's a quite unique fringe case. Because normally those unique fringe cases are things that normally happen towards the top end of a table. It's been entertaining. That'll do. Dandone, I don't play AOS, but I did enjoy it. That'll fine. Do we get extra votes for wearing and repping Honest Wargamer merch? You do, actually. And also, ladies will flock to you. So do go onto our merch store. It's a good idea for a show. Thank you, Tristan. Yes, this should be a regular show. T-Man Cash. Yes, it's all good. Okay. Exceptionally useful. Good. Bi-weekly show. Okay. Great show as always. Thank you, Chris Chibi. Fuck you, buddy, too. AOS is for people who want 2 goes in a row. Should be on the regs. Steve Dooley, you should be on the regs, you babe. I would like to see question time with the Honest Wargamer and AOS rules writers. Or our games not too scared. Oh my god. It'd be like when Trump was interviewed, right, by that reporter. He hands him the paper. And he's like, what does this mean? What the fuck is this? All right, well, it's been a pleasure. I've really enjoyed it. Don't forget to join me tomorrow. I think I'm joined by Owen, but either way, if I'm not, we're going to be looking at the Hammer Time 6 list. So that's the TTS event that we'll be doing coverage of the weekend. Super awesome. We've got Nathan Prescott doing some coverage. We've got Dan unsupervised. He's going to be doing some co-commentating with me. It's going to be really fun. Owen, we've got some infield reporters. We're going to have a really fun day. So if you're locked in at home and you want a whole day of Age of Sigmar coverage where we sit, we have a laugh, we talk about bent armies, we have some real fun. We're going to do it through the Honest Wargaming, not through TSN, so it's like a little bit more casual, a bit more relaxed. We're going to have a really fun day. Please do join us for that. And if you're 40k curious or like 40k at all, two of the best men I know, Nick and Tom, are going to be on the show with me tonight talking 40k. Very excited. We're going to be talking about lists for Death Watch. We're going to be talking about unit roles for Death Watch. It's really, really fun. I'm really looking forward to it. I genuinely get excited about being able to talk to Nick and Tom every week. So please do join us for that later. Big love to everyone in the chat, everyone on Patreon. I can't thank you enough. Everyone who's subscribed today, like Milky Badger, Beard and Brew, Ock Panda, you're great. Yeah, loads of love. Look after yourselves. And I think this is my outro now. Fuck you, buddies.